Hello there and welcome. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to break down some complicated theory. Instead, I want to tell you a story. It's a really gentle, inspiring story about one of the most curious people you could ever imagine, a man named Richard Feynman, and the simple, wonderful joy he found in, well, finding things out.
And, like all the best stories, this one starts a long, long time ago. So why don't you get comfortable, maybe settle in a bit, as we talk about a little boy who grew up to see the world in a way that, really, no one ever had before.
So our story begins way back in Richard's childhood. This is where those first little seeds of his amazing curiosity were planted. Now, Richard was a very, very quiet boy. He didn't even start talking until he was 3 years old. But just because he was quiet on the outside, it didn't mean his mind was still. Oh no. Inside, it was just buzzing with questions and noticing everything. This idea, this simple but, wow, powerful idea, came from his dad, Melville. He taught Richard not to just, look at the world and accept it. No, he taught him to ask questions, to always wonder why and how does that work. And that one little piece of advice, it became the thing that guided Richard his entire life. And he put that advice to work right away. His bedroom basically became his own little laboratory. He was famous in the neighborhood as the kid who could fix radios just by thinking about them. He even built a secret burglar alarm for his room. And he shared that sense of wonder with his little sister Joan, taking her outside to see the magical, dancing lights in the sky. So as Richard got older, that curiosity that started with radios, well, it led him to explore a world that nobody can see, the world of physics. So, what even is physics? Well, at its heart, it's just the science that tries to figure out the rules of the universe. I mean, everything, from how giant stars move all the way down to the tiniest little bits that make up you and me. And Richard had this really beautiful way of seeing this hidden world. He didn't just see numbers and equations. No, he pictured all those fundamental particles, electrons and photons, as if they were all elegant dancers at a huge fancy ball. And these dancers, they were always moving. They would just twirl and spin across this big universal dance floor, bumping into each other, maybe changing partners, and then gracefully moving on. Sometimes they'd even change into something totally new. He wanted everyone to see this beautiful dance, so he started drawing little pictures of it, just simple lines and squiggles showing the particles' dance moves. And these became the famous Feynman diagrams. They were so clear, so brilliant, that other physicists absolutely loved them. Some people even painted them on their vans. But, Richard was so much more than just a serious scientist in a lab coat. He had this playful spirit, and his curiosity just spilled out into every single part of his life. He would sit and think about these incredibly complex physics problems while playing the bongo drums. He even learned how to crack open safes, not for any bad reason, but just for the fun of it. He saw a lock as just another interesting puzzle that needed to be solved. To Richard, everything was a puzzle. He once gave this really famous talk called "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." And he wasn't talking about, a building or anything. He was talking about the physical world itself. He was pointing out that we had barely even started to explore the world of the really, really small. He had this incredible dream. He pictured a day when we could build tiny, microscopic machines. Machines so small they could write every book in every library in the whole world on the head of a pin. I mean, can you imagine? That amazing idea helped kick off the whole field we now call nanotechnology. And underneath everything he did, whether it was physics or cracking safes, was this deep, deep belief in one thing: finding the simple, honest truth. This was his rule for life. He said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. For Richard, really understanding something wasn't about using big, complicated words. It was about being able to explain it so simply that anyone could get it. And this belief of his was really put to the test. Later in his life, after the tragic Challenger Space Shuttle accident, he was asked to help with the investigation. And while all the other experts were buried in these super complicated reports, Richard was just looking for the simple truth. And he found it. Not with some supercomputer, but with a clamp from a hardware store and a glass of ice water. Right there, in a live press conference, he took a little piece of the rubber seal from the shuttle, squeezed it in the clamp, and just dunked it in the ice water. And when he pulled it out, it didn't spring back. The cold had made it stiff and brittle. And just like that, with one simple, dramatic little test, he showed everyone exactly what went wrong. And that really brings us to the end of our story, and to the most important lesson that Richard Feynman left behind for all of us. You know, he won the Nobel Prize, which is pretty much the highest honor a scientist can get. But for him, the awards were never the real point. The real reward, the thing that drove him his whole life, was just that incredible feeling of discovery, that aha moment. It was the pure pleasure of finding things out. And that's his real legacy, I think. He showed us that science isn't just for super geniuses in lab coats. The whole universe is this huge, beautiful puzzle, and every single one of us is invited to play along and help solve it, just by asking why and how.
So remember Richard's story tonight. Remember that your curiosity is kind of like a superpower. There's a whole universe of wonderful, amazing things just waiting for you to discover them. Sleep well, little explorer.